Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
It's just the way they approach it. They give it their best every day. And then you just that simple thing. And nobody ever thinks it's that simple, but it's that simple. There's 1,000 other little things that go into it, but when you're around a group of guys and you watch them, making sure that they give it their best, their very best, every single day.
There he is, Jim Harbaugh, talking about that was right after the Big Ten championship. Asked to reflect on this team and what it takes to get the job done. Harbaugh boiling it down to giving it your best every single day. But he did say there's 1,000 other little things, and Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine, is on, and he's going to talk about not all 1,000 little things, but 10 of those 1,000 little things that can help you in your pursuit of repeating as champion. Scarcelli is on the screen, and we're happy to say good afternoon to him. What's going on, Scar?
It reminds me of Machiavelli, fear and love. Okay, last year we were motivated by fear and being pissed off, 2 and 4. Now we got big old rings on our finger. That's the love. We got to have a little bit of both. We got to be pissed off. And, as we move forward to taking on this new challenge, this new season.
Yeah, well, the motivation, you could say, you find anything that you can to be motivated about, but being able to get there is one thing. To be able to stay there is another thing. You hear enough people that have done it, and they say, yeah, it was such a challenge to get there, but it's even more difficult to stay on top.
Yeah, because, people are going to be working on Michigan all spring. People are going to spend more time on Michigan. Everybody that's got us on the schedule, Michigan State, maybe, obviously they're going to put more time, Ohio State more time, and everybody in the eastern side is going to put more time on Michigan opposed to other people because they know, that's the team to beat. So, but I've got 10 things on a list, Danny. If we get these things done, I'm feeling good, but they're a tough 10.
Scar, have you been down to the spa all week, or whatever else? You look like $1 million. I don't know. What are you chalking up to?
I finally broke down and got a good webcam, Danny. I'm tired of my buddies are calling who tune in. And they're saying you got to get with the program, man. So I spent a couple dollars and stepped up the game, man. Got things a little better over here. Got a better camera, and trying to get with the new millennium over here, man. I'm living in the 80s.
Well, you look good. Here it is. I feel like I got an 80s, one of those gigantic, screens, and then I look like I'm looking over at you, and you're in high def. So that's good stuff. I'm glad you got it, and we're off and running here on Maize and Blue Review. We're here weekdays at 1:00. It's always great to have Scarcelli. He's usually here on Thursdays. One exception last week. He came in on a Tuesday because he had to go to camp. And guess what? We are going to get those impressions from Coach Scarcelli, his thoughts on camp as he was out there last week. But we also have Scar's top 10 things UFM needs to do to repeat. And we are looking forward to that. And, you heard Harbaugh talking about what needed to do there, what he chalked it up to. KC, much better webcam. SNBI saying you sound better too.
I'm trying to step up the game, Danny. Trying to step the game up. The Wolverines are trying to step up. Old Scars is trying to give good information that people can hear clearly.
All right, well, let's get it going. Let's get into those 10 things that U of M needs to do to repeat, and let's start with number 1, and we will go to 10 instead of going in reverse order. That's how I have listed them out there. So let's as sometimes people say, let's rock and roll.
All right, Danny. These are 10, and they're all very important. I don't think any of them are any more important than the next. But last year we did a great job, I would say, preventing injury. And there's a lot of things that go into preventing injury. We only had a couple guys that were out. We lost Ronnie Bell early, but getting strong, getting fit, getting flexible. Those are little things that can help prevent injury. The more muscle you got around your body, and we do a great job with that. I saw some of the things they were doing in the weight room when I was at the camp, and some new stuff, new emphasis on different body parts, core, and different things that are so important, to keep your strength during the season and enable you to prevent injury and take on the collisions that you take on through the course of a football season. So we're doing a great job there. I think our strength coach is good, and all those things play into preventing injury. So number one was preventing injury by getting strong, getting fit, and being flexible. So that's number one on my list. The second thing on my list is right amount of contact, hitting and contact. As a coach, you're always faced with that question as you work into the season, preseason. How much hitting am I going to do? How much hitting does this team need before that first game? I don't want to beat them up, but I don't want to be too soft. And there's a happy median. And I've been to Michigan's practices. I think Jim does a real good job with this, is getting just enough contact. And I think we did a good job. So 1 and 2 kind of play together. You got to try to maintain your strength through the season, and you can't beat them up with too much contact. So those two play with, preventing injury and the right amount of contact as you go into the season and then as you go through the season. So I think we've done a good job with those two. And I'll get right into number 3, and then I'll let you comment after I get my last 3. My third one. The third one is seniors who lead by example. Senior leadership. I think we had great leadership last year. I think the idea of the captains, that it's about these two, I think that's overrated. I always have felt that's overrated. It's about the whole group of seniors. And what great leadership does is they lead on and off the field. They make sure guys are doing the right thing on campus, because when you see older guys do the right things on campus, on the practice field, the young guys will all fall in line. I think we had great leadership last year, Hutchinson, Haskins, and some of those guys. The great leadership doesn't allow for a lit down against, someone you're supposed to beat. Obviously, the coaches play a big role in that, but the senior leadership doesn't allow you to have sloppy practices. Doesn't allow you to, just give weak effort. So I think we had great leadership last year. I think we have the foundation. We've got a lot of guys back that are going to set us up to do all 3 of those first things, those 3 things on my list. Go ahead, Danny, your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd be interested, about number 2 and the hitting and the contact. And the one thing you talk to, I'd say, older players, and almost to a man, they always just are like, oh my God, these guys don't hit anymore. They can't tackle. And, these practices are soft. Older coaches are that way too. Now, it has changed over the last couple of years, and you just have to look to the NFL where, in exhibition football, some of the coaches, you play maybe the starters for a series in the first game. Maybe you're playing them in the first quarter in the second game. This was, traditionally how most coaches approached it. And then you got to the third game and they called it the dress rehearsal, and they would play the entire first half and maybe sometimes a series or 2 into the third quarter. Well, then came Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams. And, he was only, I don't know if he was even 30 years old, just right around 30 years old when he took over for the Rams. And he didn't play any of his starters all preseason. Everybody's like, this team's not going to be ready to go. They're not hitting. And he decided that he thought that if they were going to be a little sluggish in the first half, the first quarter of the first game, he was willing to take that risk rather than put them through live bullets in these exhibition games. And he was talking about some of the same things when he went into hitting. He didn't want to knock his own guys out. And he knew that it was going to take, so that balancing act that you talked about. Now, that's one extreme, but I know Tom Brady likes playing in the preseason. He wants to get as many reps. They have to drag him off the field, even in the exhibition season, because he wants the reps with his receivers. So it's an interesting, whatever the formula is, and it's different from coach to coach, but it's getting to the point where, some of the coaches just want to have two-hand touch and then get out there and try to hit the ground running, which is difficult at the pro level for sure.
Yeah, a lot of those decisions as a coach depend on how much depth you have. I remember going to the Rose Bowl, and we were grinding, boy. We had two practices, and I remember talking to the UCLA guys. They were in shorts and shoulder pads. We're having full go, 2 practices, beating each other up, and they're in shorts and shoulder pads. And so there's a lot of different philosophies. I think Jim has a good approach. I've been to the practices. I think they do just enough. I think he sees it, and I think we'll be good in those 3 areas. I'm going to get on number 4 here, Denny.
All right.
Building a unified team, unified competitive team. Again, the senior leadership will make sure these things happen, but you can't let. I've been on some teams where you had maybe little dissension, little problems with this guy and that guy, or these people this guy doesn't get along, or he's not happy he's playing. And you got to really focus on that word team and just compete like heck, fight like heck with each other, for each other. In building those things, that it takes time. And, this little trip around the state of Michigan, spending more time with each other, the kind of attitude when you're in a tough game and you look next to look at the guys next to you, you don't want to let them down. And that just takes, I'm hoping that develops. I think it's going to happen. Last year it happened because we were 2-4, got punched in the face. Now we got to find another way to build and unify that team. The 5th thing I have on my list is a ball secure offense. Creative. How did you word this? A creative ball security focused offense. Josh Gaddis did a great job last year. We are known for something. I always say this as an offense. You got to be known for something. We run the power. We got 3 tight ends. We like power. That's a Jim Harbaugh #1 play, and we run zone. We're going to be good at those 2 plays. Our offensive linemen know, our offense knows that's what we run. So when you get down in your stance and we got to make a tough yard over in Iowa or down in Columbus, our guys know there's certain plays that we've been running them hundreds of times, thousands of times. We feel good with it. But we're also going to have enough conflict and creative stuff to put the defense in conflict. And I thought Gaddis and our whole offensive system last year was we had a foundation, but we also have some creativity and some just enough Statue of Liberty, some of those kind of things, double pass, just enough. You can't overdo it. You still got to be known for something. So I'm putting this on Weiss and Moore. Got to give us what Gaddis gave us with creativity, and let the guys be good at something. And the fans can't be getting impatient when we're running the heck out of the ball those first 3 games of the year, because we're building a confidence when we keep running it. And the 6th thing on my list is a defense that stops the run and creates problems for the opponent. We got to always focus on stopping the run, and the same kind of thing. We want to be creative defensively. One thing I loved about McDonald is he obviously focused on stopping the run, but we didn't know what we were going to get week in, week out. We could have saw the same formations from Rutgers that we saw from Maryland, but we had a different scheme that we used for both of them, just to mess with the offensive coordinators from those different teams, because we were not predictable on what we were going to do in all situations. Week in, week out, there was creativity on both sides of the ball. So I'm putting this on Minter and Klinksdale. The other 2 is Weiss and Moore, got to be great. Replacing Gaddis, Minter and Klinksdale got to be great. Creating that kind of a defense like McDonald did. Go ahead, Danny, your thoughts.
Yeah, I think number 5, when you talk about being creative and being known for something, there were groans at halftime of that Washington game with Michigan up 10-0 because they were running the ball so much and dominating. And the thought was, I know, talking with people at the half, and I had my thought myself, it's like, Michigan should be up by a lot more here, and they could let Washington back in the game. They better come out here in the third quarter and start throwing the ball. Well, they didn't. They came out and ran, but they ran it right down their throat. Then they got up 17-0, and they just continued to go to pound and ground or ground and pound. I wonder, you said the couple magic words there, you hope the fans don't get impatient with those first 3 games. Well, Michigan's going to win those first 3 games. How much are they talking about getting those quarterbacks in there and being able to give those guys a chance to compete, to really see who's going to be the best guy for the job once they start the Big Ten, or certainly start out October on the road against Iowa? Like, I guess the question the fans would want to know is, how could J.J. McCarthy actually win the job if you come out and you're running the football, left and right? You're not giving him a chance to throw until the fourth quarter when, you got all the backups in there. How are you really going to be able to judge who's the best guy for the job?
Well, there's a lot more involved with the quarterback's play other than, just completing passes and getting us in the right play and carrying out good fakes. And I think they're both going to have a good opportunity all spring, all fall camp. And then I think they're both going to play a lot this year. I think that's this plan. Like I've said it, I think you're going to see JJ anywhere from 35 to 40% of the snaps in crucial times, not just to run the ball in all situations. I think, for Jim to keep the kid here, I think he's had to make some kind of promises to the kid that I'm going to play you a little more. That's what I'd like to see. I like the idea of having 2 good quarterbacks. You sleep better at night. I'm going to move on to number 7.
Oh, before you do that, let me ask you a question. When you talked about, the promises of playing more, what if the promise is that he's going to let him compete for the starting job? What if I'm J.J. McCarthy and my dad's in my ear saying, what's Jim saying about you getting the real opportunity to start from game 1? He wasn't able to compete because he couldn't throw in the spring. When they get into fall camp, and they have to allocate a certain amount of snaps to the starter, and they have to break that down. How is J.J. McCarthy, theoretically, I don't care who wins the job, but theoretically, how can he win that job? How can they divvy up the snaps where he can go over there and make an impression in fall camp and somehow overtake McNamara, which doesn't seem likely at this point, but how could he do it in theory?
Danny, our coaches used to tell me, hey, and told us as players, and I said the same thing to my players, every single practice, you have an opportunity to take somebody's position. Everything you do, when you come down to that football building, you are competing to take somebody's spot or lose your spot. So, he's throwing now. He's in camp. He's going to have all preseason. They're going to have a bunch of scrimmages. Every single thing he does is going to continue to be evaluated. The scrimmages they have, the practices they have, every player on that team. And obviously, though, there's some guys that are gamers. Okay, some guys are gamers, and that's gonna have a little more weight. But I believe that he would. Jim is going to give him a lot of reps in these early games to maybe make the argument that he deserves 50% of the reps. Who knows? Maybe he could flip the script if he plays outstanding. Because there's no question, JJ. If I'm defending Michigan, and JJ can make all the accurate passes, and get us in the right play, just like McNamara, I'd much rather defend McNamara because he doesn't give me the run threat. JJ is more of a problem because he gives me more of a run threat. But can he get us in the right play, and is he going to be as accurate? Those are the things he's going to have to do to overtake McNamara. So,
very good answer. Let me just follow up real briefly. I could sit here and ask you about it all day long, but what about fans who might say, look, McCarthy, what if he's breathing down his neck in fall camp and they get to the start of the season, however they divvy up the snaps? How important are what everybody going to see with now that it's live? We already talked about how they're not going to hit the quarterbacks in fall camp. A little bit more difficult when you're standing back there and somebody's coming at you and trying to tear your head off. How much evaluation is going to go into those games and the things that we are going to be able to see as it applies to then how they're going to take the snaps in game 2 or game 3, and then from there on.
Yeah, Denny, he's looking at everything. I'm trying to answer this question. I mean, those guys are going to be they're going to be evaluated on every player down there. What was the word you used? Breathing down his neck. I think there's a whole lot of guys every day at practice have people breathing down their throat, trying to take their job. It's not just McNamara. There's a lot of talented players there that aren't happy being second string. And they're going to, there's going to be battles going on every day in practice. Every scrimmage is going to be crucial for a lot of these guys. If JJ is the better QB, he should start. As simple as that. Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into, Danny, that we don't see simply watching the game sometimes. Now, listen, the majority of it, we'll see the great passes. We'll see the escapability, and we'll see those things. But is he making the right plays? Is he getting us in the right play? Is he carrying out fakes? There's some things we don't see. Some of the mistakes, the coaches will see that we don't. But I think they're going to be given a fair opportunity, both those guys. And that's all I can say about it, Danny. I just think that's how Jim coaches. He wants the best players out there at the same time, and be fair to them.
Yeah, well, you sound like a former player and a coach, and that's what you are. So that's the way you should sound. So good job.
Yeah, I mean, my guys, some of them used to say, I got to get a, well, hey, man, I got to get a chance. I got to get a shot. Every day in practice, you get a chance to prove it. Every day at our scrimmage, our preseason scrimmages, show me what you can do. And then if I do give you a few reps in the game, you got to make something happen. But let's go on, Danny. Let's go on to number 7. I think we have the best special teams coach in the Big Ten. He's got to continue. Our kicking game has got to continue to be great. Our punt protection is great. I think he does a great job with it. We protect good. We punted the ball well. Our punt return team is really good. I was on both those teams. They're crucially important for field position. The punt team, you got to cover. You want to give them bad field position to give our defense a great opportunity. And then the punt return, you want to give our offense, try to make a first down. One less first down we got to make. I think our punt return team was good there. And our kicker, we got our kicker back. Let's hope that he gives us the same thing. I mean, he was an All-American kicker last year. And I think I saw him picked on one of the teams. But Jay Harbaugh, he's creative. They're well coached. They're sound. He got the throwback pass against Maryland. You remember that one, Denny? On the kick return. So those are the things that I like. I like to see sound and creative in all phases. You see, I have a repeating common thread there in all phases. I want sound, but I want also creative.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of hidden yardage when it comes to special teams. It does get overlooked, but Michigan, you mentioned Moody. Robbins is back as well. Henning was awesome in the return game. Corum busted out a few times. I can think about the opener last year where he took a big one back, talking about in the return game. So yeah, it is huge. It's it's a third of the game, and it does get overlooked a lot. So you're smart putting that one in there, Scar.
Okay, number 8. It's huge. Develop depth. We're constantly, you got to recruit good players, and you got to develop depth. You can't say, so many times we hear the phrase, next man up. Well, guess what? If you don't get that guy ready, that's on the coach. It's one thing to say next man up, but you better have that. That's one of many things I learned watching Coach Schembechler is how much importance he put on that number 2 guy. The second string guy has got to be ready. He's got to have reps. He's got to know what the heck he's doing. So we got to develop depth. I think as a program, we do a great job with it. You remember the Nebraska game, Denny? We played 5 guards in that game. 5 guards. 3 of them got busted up at one time in that game. And we had to play 5 different guards. That's depth. That's a coaching staff that is prepared. We got to continue to do that. Develop depth. Number 9 on my list. Playmakers become legends. Who's going to make the plays this year? Playmakers become legends. Look at the games. Look at when you think of the Penn State victory, what do you think about, Danny? What's the one guy, the big play?
Dotson? Is that who you're looking for?
Well, I'm thinking of
Oh,
Alls.
for Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric All. Yeah.
Okay. How about Nebraska?
The 47-yard touchdown. The
That's
play.
right.
I think about Hawkins making
Hawkins.
the game.
That's right. How about, you know who I think about for Wisconsin? I think about Ojabo with the big strip sack. You remember that?
I do. I think about Cornelius Johnson catching that flea flicker for that first touchdown.
Yeah. Or Ohio State Hutchinson with the big stuff in that tackle and the power rush with the sack.
15 pressures.
Yeah. I mean, who's gonna step up and make plays? We can talk about all this stuff and all this other thing and scheme and all this stuff, but guys got to make plays. You got to have, a coach can only do so much. You can put guys in positions and you can scheme and this and move guys around to try to fool the opponent, but you got to make plays. And who are those guys? We got to have guys step up in the big games. Someone has got to have to step up when we go to Iowa and make big catches, make big tackles, block a kick. Who's going to do that? So playmakers become legends is number 9. And the last thing is improve, get better each week. We got to improve. We got to get better every week. Coach Schembechler used to talk about that. We played 11 games, and it's all about getting better more than Ohio State's getting better. Our improvements got to be higher and better than what the Buckeyes are doing. So when we get them game 12, we are at our peak. We've improved every week. We've maintained our strength. We're not a beat up team, and all these little things I talked about here is preparing us for game 12 because we're developing depth as the season goes on, and we are getting better. Everybody's getting better, and game 12 we are ready. And that's how we're going to win a championship. Now, if looking at these 10 things, Denny, in my opinion, we need to be great in 10. We could probably get away with being great in 8 and good in 2. Okay, but if we start being average in any of these, we're going to have trouble. We're going to have problems. We got to be. Last year we were great in all of these things. And if we want to repeat, we got to do it again.
It's a good list. Before we talk about camps, let's hit another question, and it comes from Jeremy. How important is it for the offense to be explosive, especially when it comes to recruiting? As big as an issue as NIL is, it's going to be hard to get 5-star quarterbacks and wide receivers if you're throwing it 15 times a game.
Hey, Jeremy, you make a great point. And these kids aren't stupid. They're going to look at what Michigan does offensively. And they're, if I'm a big time receiver and they're looking at Michigan with these tight ends all the time, it's going to make it tougher for us to recruit. But guess what? We're going to be able to recruit tight ends better than maybe Ohio State can. So, and the quarterbacks, our quarterbacks, I imagine Jim Harbaugh is selling them on, listen, we are running a pro style stuff here. We're going to ask you to do a lot of different things that will get you ready for professional football. We may not throw it as much as some of these other guys because we're going to, he's got to find a way to sell it. But you make a great point there that, maybe we're not throwing it as much as other teams but that's our philosophy to win a championship. We're going to play with more tight ends. We want to run the ball in the snow. We're going to have an offense that's weatherproof. So I make a great point. I'm trying to give the argument as to why, we're recruiting tight ends and we'll have a better opportunity to recruit. And I think for an offensive lineman, if I'm an offensive lineman and I'm looking at Michigan or Ohio State, I'm coming to Michigan because Michigan's offense is asking them to do all the different things that the professional teams want. Ohio State's just pass protecting. That's all they're doing is pass protecting. They run zone. They don't do so many of the things that I think a Michigan offensive lineman does to prepare them. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I don't know that they're doing as many things to prepare an offensive lineman to go play for, the Detroit Lions or the Chicago Bears or these teams, the Buffalo Bills. So
You know who else should be jumping at the chance to play for Michigan? Running backs.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should have a great opportunity to recruit, some of those kids maybe better than, than the guys that want to throw it all day long. So listen, there's no question. There's an upside and downside as to what you run. Yeah. Well, he doesn't
like just a team full of tight ends.
Yeah, I get it. But the argument I would make is what happened when we played the Buckeyes in the snow up here, or when you got to have an offense that's weatherproof. Listen, it's the philosophy Jim has. He doesn't want to play with, 4 wide all day long. He wants to have the ability to go 4 wide, but also the ability to run 3 tight ends. I don't think we're quite Wisconsin. I think I would say we're a diverse offense. I mean, I can take these questions. My feelings aren't hurt. I think we are a diverse offense that has the ability to run 4 wide and go empty at times. But at the same time, when you hire Jim Harbaugh, I think you're just not getting spread. You're not getting it. So I think people have to understand that. But I think we are a diverse offense. I wouldn't. And again, I think the argument I would make as a former defensive player and a defensive coach is our offense really helps our defense stop all the people that we're going to face throughout the season. So there's an upside to what we do because, we'll be able to stop Wisconsin if we get them in the championship game or stop Iowa because of the things we do offensively. I said that many times. So there's good and bad in everything you do.
Last Thursday, you weren't here. You were at a camp in Ann Arbor. We've got one more feedback, and then we will talk about your thoughts at the Michigan football camp. It's back to Venice, who says the problem is having a coach who tried to leave and couldn't, and now you got to go sell that to the kids.
Hey, Venice, you might be right that some of that stuff, there's no doubt that playing around with Minnesota and all that, it could have been a factor in some of the minds of some of these recruits. We don't know. Okay. And Michigan decided to stay with it, and it is what it is. And we got to hope that our coaches can find a way to recruit. Listen, we're all sitting here watching these recruiting lists. We're not, Denny, you've been covering it a lot. We're expecting to start closing some deals. We're close, but we're not closing deals. So he makes a good point. Some of that stuff could be out there with some of these recruits.
Well, I think the tangible part is, and we're going to get to some more feedback coming up after Scar's thoughts on the Michigan football camp, but specifically to Harbaugh, we don't know for sure. But what we do know for sure about it is that it precipitated Josh Gaddis leaving. Harbaugh was out there, and it looked like he was out the door, and then Gaddis didn't like what he was hearing about possibly filling the shoes of Harbaugh, so he looked elsewhere, and he was gone. So it did precipitate Gaddis leaving, and Gaddis was – he called a masterpiece against Ohio State last year. I think that Weiss and the combination of Weiss and Sharon Moore should be able to pick up the slack there, and I think that they should be okay. But on the recruiting trail, Josh Gaddis also had a little twinkle in his eye. And he was one of Michigan's strong recruiters. He was on the big-time names. I mean, that is something. All of that plays into it. I know people always say, well, look at Alabama. They're losing guys left and right. Michigan's not at the Alabama recruiting level right now. We all know that. And so, that part of it's tough to replace big-time recruiters. It's, you lost your OC. We'll find out what that effect has actually on the program coming up when we see what kind of plays Weiss dials up. But, it hurts to lose one of your top recruiters. And Josh Gaddis certainly was that.
Yeah, there's no question. He was a good recruiter. He got better as a coach. He learned how to run that offense better as he went along. And we'll see if these guys can step up, Sharon Moore and Weiss, and let's keep the faith, man. I'm seeing it too. We're all watching the recruits. We're hoping on Dante Moore. We're watching some of these kids, and
we'll get to some of those questions coming up. I see them coming in. Let's get to your football camp experience last week. First of all, Scar, since you played football and then you went into the high school ranks, you at times, I don't know, was it annually? How many times did you come back to Ann Arbor and participate as a coach in Michigan's football camp?
Probably at least 15 years I did it, probably 15 times. So I saw it as a player. I know the history of the camp, and that's kind of what I want to get into. I know some of this stuff, but I want to get into it real quick. This camp started around 75, 76. Coach McCartney was one of the first founders of it, and it was called the Michigan Technique Camp. And it was, there was a lot of emphasis on teaching and giving a kid his money's worth, teaching, blocking, tackling, and great technique. And I saw it as a player. I learned a ton as a player there. And so there was so I have the historical integrity is intact for Michigan. After watching what they did and what I saw at this camp, I felt real good that our coaches were coaching their butt off for a lot of kids that aren't going to play college football. There was about 250 kids there. A handful might play in the Big Ten. I'm sorry, I can't give details, Denny, about which guy was there. I was watching the overall, coaching of it. I just took an overall picture of the camp, and I liked how hard the coaches were coaching. They were giving all the kids their attention and teaching them football, and not just the big time kids, but they were teaching. So I was happy to see that. There was one of the great, it's probably the cheapest camp in the country. It's only $25. Those kids were in the stadium. They were running they ran their 40s at the stadium. They were doing some agility drills. They met every coach on Michigan staff was there watching these kids, timing these kids, evaluating these kids. They were on all the practice fields. They were in the weight room. They got to see the weight room, and they got to see everything that the players do. It was only $25. So as a high school coach and a guy who went as a player and I sent kids there that weren't going to play college football. I liked the integrity, the teaching. It's not a money grab deal. And so I was happy to see that. I talked to Mike Elston briefly. I talked to some of the coaches. Mike Elston was a camper. He was telling me his story, how he got discovered at the camp, but he was coaching his butt off. There was some, coaching technique with the D line. But I know everybody wants would like to know whether what was going on with some of the prospects, and I had an overall view. I was watching the whole deal, and there was what I saw. A lot of the current players were coaching. They're making a few bucks. That was good to see. They were coaching their butt off, working with the kids. But I talked to Coach Harbs real quick, shook his hand. He's fired up. He was mobbed with he's in there with all these kids, and he was giving them every effort he had to teach football. So he was fired up, and same old positive guy that I've always known as a player and coach. So, but what else did I see there? Yeah, they're a lot of evaluating too, though. There's so many drills they do to evaluate talent. The first thing they do at a camp is they're going to run your 40. Then they're going to do some of the pro shuttle drills, and they're going to test your long jump, and they're going to weigh you, and they're going to see how tall you are, and they were doing the width, Danny. That was new. They weren't doing that when I was there.
Wingspan.
Well, looking at the wingspan and trying to see, how big are their hands and some of these things. That was some new evaluation that they weren't doing when I remember working the camp. But I think our camp is good. We have opportunities to bring guys here, and they come. I think a lot of the big time kids, Denny, at some of these camps, the coaches might bring them in at different times so they can give them a little more attention. They might even bring them in earlier before the camp starts or on off days. Some of these kids, they'll bring in a quarterback they're recruiting with maybe some of the top receivers they're recruiting, try to have them there together so that the quarterback can throw to some of the receivers they're looking at. And I think some of that stuff goes on with some of these schools.
It's great stuff, Scar. We've got breaking news coming across the wire here, and I'm going to flash it to you, and you're going to have an opportunity. There is a reporter, John Wilner, at Wilner Hotline. He's got 31,000 followers. He is somebody that says that he is syndicated via KSL.com, Denver Post, Seattle Times, Oregon Live, and a few others that goes through there. And he has a blue check mark by his name. Having said that, he is indicating, let's see if I can get that up on the screen to you. Source, USC and UCLA are planning to leave for the Big Ten as early as 2024. Move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power. So let me just hear your thoughts about that. You don't have to believe it. You can take it from any way you want. But what do you think when you hear about the possibility of USC and UCLA being added to the Big Ten?
It's just shocking. It's just shocking. It's hard to even digest that. I'm thinking travel. I'm thinking travel times for those games, that digs into a kid's weekly schedule, more time. I remember flying back from Washington. We played them one day and, getting back to your dorm room at like 4 a.m. So, that's amazing. It gives you advantages from a recruiting standpoint. If you're going to try to, you can recruit California maybe a little better now. It's you can recruit. That's it. Yeah, it helps you with recruiting in California and Arizona and some of those parts of the Los Angeles area. But a lot of travel. And I don't know. It's amazing. That's one of the last things I would expect to be hearing.
Well, when you had Texas and Oklahoma go to the SEC, those are two blue blood programs. And then there was a talk about an alliance between the Pac-12 and the ACC and the Big Ten. And they had an alliance, but they never really went anywhere with it. They just said that they were aligning. But they didn't talk anything about it. So that the Big Ten, the first thing that I think about it, if it's just a money move, being able to go out to California in the biggest TV market, west of New York City, and land not one but two of those schools, one that plays in the Rose Bowl, just for the footprint of the Big Ten, that blows it out of the water. When you think about the money that is being charged to the Big Ten network, that was one of the big reasons that Michigan brought in Rutgers, was that New York City footprint. Now the Big Ten has the New York City footprint. They also pull in the entire Southern Cal blueprint, which is amazing. And I get what you're saying about travel. That is a concern if that was going to be the question. Now, it's not Arizona. Would it have been better if it was USC in Oregon or USC Cal if you were thinking about academics? But this is pretty close to being too. Like USC is definitely a traditional blue blood. And knowing that Lincoln Riley's out there right now, this is a gigantic. This is one of the schools. And UCLA has always been a sleeping giant, and they play in the Rose Bowl. So,
Danny,
so you're going to eliminate. The thing is, you're going to, the part about where will they play and how will they schedule, and is Michigan's going to get screwed because now they're going to have to play Ohio State twice. I think all of that is potentially going to happen.
I'll tell you though, it's easy. It's actually easy for the football players because they're only making a few trips. But think about these other sports. If you're a USC or UCLA basketball player, you're really, you're going to be flying coast to coast every other week. That's a lot of travel. I don't know, man. We'll see if it plays out. My prediction is that one day if Nebraska decides, they're getting tired of getting beat up in the Big Ten, we might see West Virginia come with us. They border Pennsylvania, and Nebraska go to the Big 12. That's one of the moves I talked about. That because how long are the Nebraska fans going to accept never going to the championship game? Well, actually, they had been to the championship game, I think, with Pelini. But
no, travel. You think about USC flying to Rutgers, and UCLA flying out to Maryland. That's coast to coast. That's But that also is the Big Ten saying, all right, SEC, you penetrated, you got Texas and you got Oklahoma. The Big Ten, it was always a chance, like, here's your move. And the move is we're going all the way out to the Golden Coast, and we are snatching Southern California, that television market, and we are bringing it to the Midwest. If it's possible, if this Wilmer knows what he is talking about. And again, if you're just tuning in here, it is we'll see how much confirmation and if this ends up happening. But the tweet from John Wilner is that he has a source that USC and UCLA are planning to leave for the Big Ten as early as 24. He indicates the move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power. So they're talking about it. They're planning it. They just haven't completely got everything all sorted out here. Just a yes or no, would you be in favor if they said, let's call Jim Scarcelli and let's him be the final vote? They're down to it. Scar, should the Big Ten be going after USC?
Danny, I'm just thinking about all these other sports, the golf team, the basketball team, all these different teams. I mean, they got to go all the way to California to play these games now. I'm thinking about the students, and I'm like, wow, I don't know, man. Those are some big time travel costs.
I think the students want to go to Cali.
Yeah, hey, it might be good
for the weather.
They might want to at a certain time. Yeah, in general, they probably would. The weather in January. Yeah, you'd love to go play there, but I don't know. It's just a lot of time out of a kid's schedule during the season for all that traveling. If you're trying to really be a student too.
Yeah, it's a great point. You think about football and you're like, hey, they're flying out to the West Coast all the time in the non-conference. But yeah, then you're getting to the field hockey and golf and basketball, where every year you could be potentially going out there. You think that because it's both in California that you're going to be making a trip or two, out there if you're a basketball team or something else, or if you play everybody. It does bring scheduling into play and how they're going to end up, going with that, keeping the rivalries. And then you think about Michigan, who is going to have to play Ohio State, and that the teams that don't and only have to play them every other year, that's going to be a break. And that Michigan, if they're going to want to, win the Big Ten, that they'd probably have to beat Ohio State twice. Hopefully, I like this with what the SEC did, but I also like the direction it's going with the college football playoff. They floated that 12 out there, whether it goes to 8 or 12. I think it should go to 12. You get to 12, even if you are playing Ohio State twice, if your football team's any good, you should be able to finish in the top 12 of those BCS standings and get a chance at playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, Danny, I'm not the guy in favor of all that expansion.
All right,
because I just want to get back. Okay, four teams now. 12 regular season games, championship game. I know they've got the NIL stuff now, but everybody's not making money. And I always get back to me as a player trying to get an education. Believe it or not, there's a lot of guys that, are still trying to get an education and not want to be football for 365 days a year and flying all over the country to play 15, 16 games. So if you want to, whatever, you want to pay these guys for all these extra games, maybe I could accept compromising their chance to really compete academically.
All right, let's. You want some feedback, Scar? I've got some questions for you.
Okay.
Jeremy, this is off topic from your list, but what's your opinion on Michigan's stance on name, image, and likeness right now? Do they need to adjust?
Jeremy, we don't know everything they're doing. They talked about Jim talked about transformative, not transactional, right? Isn't that the language he used?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would like to see from these guys that are paying these guys, and we know they're if it's really helping their recruiting. The one thing I want to see, if Ohio State has this big payroll and they're paying, I want to see conflict in their locker room. I want to see guys who haven't played it down, freshmen coming in, making all this money, and guys who are starting getting nothing or getting barely anything. And I want that locker room to be at each other's throats. And then I want them arguing with the coaches, and I want chaos. That's what I want the enemy to deal with. Okay, let me just say that. So before we start attacking Michigan's, what they're doing, I don't even know everything they're doing. We don't know. Me and Danny don't know how this is playing out. But if we keep missing out on kids, you know, we seem to be second and third. I'm watching it like you, Jeremy. I'm watching it like you. I'm a little getting a little impatient too. But if we keep coming up second, third, and we're not getting these kids, then maybe it's not working. But let's give it a little more time. And we got to find, we don't know. We don't know what Jim's total plan is. But the like I said about the problems that all the money could lead to, I hope they have to deal with it, because I just put myself in that locker room as a player, and in coaching that you got to find a way to not have your players at each other's throats.
Yeah, I would add that if you look at the teams that are leading the way in the name, image, and likeness realm right now, they have a person on the side of the booster side of the equation that is bankrolling and getting out in front, and you can just say is a wild and crazy fan. You see the billionaire at Miami, you see the billionaire at Florida. Texas and Texas A&M, they have their oil money. You know that there are a few different players with USC from what they were able to throw at Lincoln Riley. Matt Ishbia, who seems to be picking up $1 billion every other day. Michigan State is a huge factor. They have a guy out in the lead. The one thing that Michigan does not have, and I know that they have the largest alumni base, and they have a lot of alumni who are making a whole lot of money, but do they have one that wants to be this point man, who wants to be this billionaire out in front of everybody that's peeling off $1 million bills for recruits? I think that if Michigan does have, this is, even though it's a year old, the name, image, and likeness tomorrow, if Michigan does not finish in the top 25 and they don't land top recruits, Michigan has to fill up a stadium of 110,000, and it's the key to everything with athletics. I don't think that they're just going to sit back if they have a, outside of the top 25 recruiting class and say, oh, well, let's just stay with transformational. Let's just stay with the lines that we're going to. No, it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a wake-up call for, but they're going to be working on it. And can they afford 1 year of a hiccup recruiting cycle? It's not very appealing, but I think that they can. But there's a lot of things that can happen to some of the other schools where it blows. I mean, this is crazy times. But there's a lot of money out there, and the part about come to our school and it being transformational, unless you're doing some things behind the scenes to get that transaction going, you might be on the outside of the top 25 looking in.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Danny. I'd love to see a situation like Michigan State has, $500 a month for every kid. I like that. That eliminates that, that keeps your locker room a little better. Keep guys getting along if everybody's getting something. A couple 4-star commits, as they will be right back up to top 20. Signing day is 6 months away. Let's hope CJ Wolverine is right. Let's be patient. Michigan fans need to relax, says CS. Well, that's where I'm at. Jimmy makes it so easy to negative recruit against them. Yeah, sometimes there's some of that. He's not one to keep his mouth shut sometimes. Our coach, but forgive my ignorance, but I don't get how Michigan's NIL is different. I see players getting paid, but somehow they are lacking. Yeah, well, we don't know what, we don't know exactly how much all these kids are getting. Are the linebackers getting money? I don't know. Are those guys getting, I haven't seen it from, a kid like Zach Zinter. Is he getting anything? You know,
Yes.
Danny? I don't know.
Well, he said on a podcast that he and the Trevor Keegan, who was driving around in a white Lamborghini this spring, he indicated that they were getting some money from writing a children's book, so they got something like that going on. And Keegan, it might have been Zinter or Keegan, one of the two, above the picture of the white Lamborghini that those guys were driving around, whose owner of the dealership is a Michigan grad. So I don't know if they both got Lamborghinis or if that was just a photo shoot or whatever else, but maybe they got Lamborghinis out of it. But attached to that photo, and I don't remember which one, if it was Zinter or Keegan, one of them indicated that the NIL has been very good to them. So they didn't have any problems. The guys that are at Michigan, they're not finding, like Hunter Dickinson is not finding a hard time going out there and getting money. And Michigan, the being able to find guys, but it's the part about promising them. NCAA has one rule when it comes to name, image, and likeness, and it's that you can't promise money up front. They call it pay for play, but they're not enforcing it. And it's as obvious. The Miami guy was telling a recruit that he was going to get an $8 million, whatever it was, signing bonus, and he got it. This was on the basketball side. The outstanding wide receiver that was on the preseason All-American list that ended up going to USC, there was rumors that he was getting $3 million. He wasn't even in the transfer portal yet for Pitt, but he ended up getting into the transfer portal, and he ended up going to USC. So if they're not able to put 2 and 2 together and hammer any of those schools, then it's pretty obvious that the transaction and guaranteed money is being talked about. And all of these players are, however you want to look at it, they're all free agents. They are free to go wherever they want. And if you have followed sports for any period of time, what you know in almost every single case is that players go where the most guaranteed money is.
You can't blame them. Yeah, the thing I'd like to see is something for the backup guys. I think that you keep guys there. You probably have guys less likely to transfer. But I'd like to see everybody on the roster. That's the one thing I like what they're doing at Michigan State. They've got a guy that stepped up, and everybody's getting something, and that's what I'd like to see. USC will only push Michigan to recruit better, which is good. Also imagine USC Michigan every year. It will be fun. Some of the sports, when you think about basketball, it actually is pretty easy in basketball because you'd only have to make that trip one time. Each team, you have to go out there and play them both like the Pac-12 does now. They'll play USC on a Thursday and then UCLA on Saturday. That's kind of
you're not going to play USC every year. Like that's not going to be your crossover rival, but every other year, I guess you'd be going to California. You'd probably be playing either UCLA or USC every other year. And I don't mind, I wouldn't mind taking a trip out to, I've been to the Rose Bowl, Scar. I've never been to, what's USC? What's it, the Coliseum? Is that where they play?
Coliseum, yeah.
I've never been to the Coliseum. We'll have to ask Haas. I saw a picture with him in the Coliseum just recently. Just standing out there with, the place filled. I think he was standing next to John Robinson.
That's an old stadium, man. They had the Olympics there back in like 32 or something. It's an old place. But yeah, I've been to both of them, played in one of them. And but hopefully a lot of good stuff today, Danny. Got a lot of good comments from our listeners.
All right, let's just clean them up here at the end. Imagine USC playing at Michigan in the Big House in November. Yeah, that is a good thing to think about, CJ. They'll be crying about the snow.
That's the great point that he makes there, because that's one of the biggest problems I always had with the bowl games is, all the bowl games are down. We got to travel. Let them come up here and play in the snow. Let Alabama and USC and Florida and these guys, let them come up to Chicago. Let's play up here. Let's play in our weather conditions. But you don't want to hear that. They don't ever want to hear that. It's all about, nice weather.
I wonder if Lincoln Riley is going to get some kind of sweetheart deal saying that no November games. All November games have to be played in Southern California.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a final thought or two, Scar?
Just got 10 good things. I'm hoping from what I saw down there, I saw a lot of a lot of energy with the current players, and there's some good looking athletes, man. I saw some of those guys, the sizes of some of those kids, and we got some good looking players, man, that are they were down there training and lifting and doing some things down there too. And I'm just fired up, man. I'm fired up. I like our team. Let's be patient on the recruiting, and let's give it, because we're right in there. We're close. We just haven't closed the deal. So we're let's just be patient with what our system is, and but we really should be, with the rings on the finger now. We should be really striking, that we put that championship on there. That should be a factor, and I'm trying to be patient. It's tough, but I'm trying to be patient, and I'm going to just continue to be, and hope we start signing some of these kids.
Great job, Scar. Remind everybody, you want to know it's a big recruiting weekend. Michigan could be landing a 4-star, a couple of 3-stars right now. If you want to know what Michigan's next move is, join the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com, cover you up to the second. You know what's going on. One thing, Scar, man, those USC and UCLA fans might be tuning in saying, man, look at this Scarcelli, man. He looks real good. That high resolution, man. You're looking great. You're looking like you're ready to go to Hollywood. Hollywood Scarcelli.
Hey, I busted out the old number 85 too, man. I got it brought out, dusted it off, brought it out.
You look great. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
All right, Danny, go blue.
There he is. Thanks for watching.